Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my table. My name is Robert, otherwise known as Birdman, one of the Legends of Nirvana. Again, here with my cousin Chris, going through part 5 of Geek Week. Each day we've been trying to do a different game and then reviewing it with you. So today we're doing Thunderstone Quest. You're going to hear probably a lot of positives about this game, just a little preview. But before we get started, please make sure you hit the like button and that subscribe button so then you get notified whenever we do make a new video of all the reviews that we do for board games. Generally going to be the initial play of what we thought about that board game, but we also do some top 10s and other stuff out there as well. So talking about Thunderstone. So Thunderstone Quest came out in 2018, but I understand this is kind of the third iteration of the Thunderstone series. The original Thunderstone, then Thunderstone Advance, and then we got Thunderstone Quest. So it is published by AEG. Overall ranking is 383, rated at a 7.9. It's designed by Mike Elliott, Brian Reese, and Mark Wooten, and then with art by Jason Engel, Matt Paquette, and David Sue. So published by AEG again. MSRP for just the initial Thunderstone Quest is $67.75, but there's quite a few expansions with different adventure decks that adds new heroes and new items and new spells and all kinds of stuff, as well as other possibilities like making it co-op and adding a solo mode as well called Barrage mode. And then there's third-party availability. A little hit and miss. I didn't see it available a whole lot, but it did range anywhere between 50 to 80 bucks. So that's Thunderstone Quest. So now we're going to start like usual with our components. So this has probably got the lowest score of anything, and that's I rated it as 7. And the reason why is because even though it's got some wooden bits kind of shaped like what they're supposed to represent, they're not screen printed, they're just painted. And then as well as the cardboard itself is okay, but the card quality isn't the best. I did sleeve them up because of the amount of shuffling that you do in a deck builder, they can get damaged quickly. So this game must be sleeved. So I did sleeve it up. So decent components, functional, nothing special, nothing to brag at. The probably component-wise, the best part is the miniatures, but there's not that many of them. And so we have a dwarf miniature, a fighter miniature, and there's a few others as well. So the sculpts themselves seem to be okay. They're not super detailed, but they're not awful.
I'd put them at quality level, probably similar to Reaper miniatures, if you're familiar with that miniature line, or maybe the Nolzors line by Dungeons & Dragons that WizKids makes. They're about that quality level. Better certainly than standard minis. Not as quite up to par as something Games Workshop would put out.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, anything else you want to talk about components-wise?
No, I mean, I pretty much agreed with you. The components, I mean, they are what they are. They're standard affair. There's no real ooh-ahs about it. The cardboard stock on it is solid.
All right, so 7 for both of us on components. Now we're going to go on to theme. A little bit higher on an 8. Standard fantasy, you know, you got your mages and fighters and clerics and wizards and all that stuff. You got your different spells, different kinds of weapons, and all kinds of different monsters that you go in. And that's probably the most unique part is they do have some pretty unique monsters that you go up against. But for the most part, it's pretty standard fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, there are multiple characters. And the one thing I thought was good about the theme is that certain characters very lightly would do certain things that are, I guess you could say, the bread and butter for that particular class. So a cleric could kind of buff up his companions at higher levels when you level up the hero. The rogue, there are several rooms in the dungeon, at least on some of the dungeon cards we played with, where it said if you don't have a rogue, you know, to essentially open or pick the door or sneak by, suffer this ill effect. So, I mean, the fact that there was some interplay and usage of the classes,
right,
that was, I thought, a good point to it.
And the mechanics of the heroes fit the theme.
They sure do.
For the class. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. And there's actually quite a bit of lore. So not really talking about the rulebook yet, but you do have a quest book. And so a couple of different ways you can play Thunderstone Quest. So you can just randomly pick different heroes against different monsters with different items and weapons and just play it. That's a la Thunderstone. Right. Regular Thunderstone. But when it comes to Thunderstone Quest, it does have some pretty good lore. So you read through your first, and it's almost the entire page, the first mission that you're going to go on, but it tells you the card list. So it tells you everything you want to play against that particular mission. And then if you then beat it, then you turn the page and you keep going, which might change the card list, or it might unlock cards that you generally wouldn't have available to you. And so this particular mission was called A Mirror in the Dark, and it looks like there's 1, 2, 3 for just that particular mission. So you can play through 3 different games with some, it looks like some heroes cross, but some do change. Items do change, weapons do change. So each game would be a little different, but there's quite a bit of story. And then this isn't the only version of the game either. So this is just the original Thunderstone Quest. There's been multiple expansions. Each one of them has a quest book and stories that go along with it. So I really like the theme. It's just a little generic for the most part. So that's why I didn't give it a stellar number, but a good solid 8 nonetheless.
Yeah, it was a solid 8 for me. I mean, the theme was good enough that I want to know more about the world. If they made a Thunderstone RPG, I'd buy it. You know, I'd buy it to read it because it's interesting enough to me and different enough just from some of the way the spells interact and the creatures that are in there. I want to know more.
Right. And it, you know, a lot of fantasy adventure board games do try and, you know, simulate a role-playing game. And I think it does that. I mean, because you level up your characters, you get loot, you go into dungeons, you fight monsters. You know, again, it's all the basic stuff of a standard fantasy role-playing, but I think it does a pretty good job of it.
I'd even go so far as to say it simulates a rogue game, like a rogue-style game on the PC or even on a console. It does a good job of that. I mean, again, it is go in, kill it, get the loot, get back, spend the loot, get more loot. Yeah. So in that respect, you know, it does kind of have that rogue feel to it. And I appreciate that. I thought that was well done.
All right, moving on to Rulebook. I gave the Rulebook an 8. Functional, got lots of artwork, lots of examples, but, you know, again, nothing special about it. So I give it an 8. It's functional.
The rulebook did have plenty of pictures in it, which I thought was good because it can be a little bit confusing. Like, I actually have this game at home, and I was confused at how to set it up a little bit. And that's why I ended up giving it a 7 because, once again, my friend YouTube had to teach us how to play the game in some aspects. We did have to refer to it. And for a game that's in its 3rd iteration, there's no excuse for that. And that's why I took it down from an 8 to a 7, which I felt was a hearty enough punishment for them not having the rulebook be up to snuff, considering the fact this is the 3rd version. Now, they did add a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And the only thing we had to really clarify on was one particular rule that was a little confusing. So, and that's the only reason why...
I'm trying to remember what the rule was.
The rule is at the end of the game, you're supposed to draw 6, discard 4. And so what was confusing is that it didn't say you draw your hand, then draw 6, and then out of all those cards, discard 4 cards.
Right, yeah.
And so that was the only part that I couldn't remember from the first time I played it. And this version is different than the other Thunderstones, where you didn't get that opportunity in the other versions of the game.
The text is a little small, specifically when I'm speaking of the text. One, some of the positioning on the text on the side of the rooms, you know, you got to torque your head to look at it. So you got to make sure that you are looking when you move through the dungeon and progress.
You've got to pay attention.
You got to pay attention to what the card rooms say, because some of them will give you loot. They'll also have special conditions of that room. Like it'll say, you know, if you do not have a rogue, you have to discard up to your 2 heroes. Or something like that. Now,
or it'll give you wounds.
Or it'll give you wounds, yeah.
We'll talk about how bad wounds are here in a moment.
Also, it does have, on a lot of the cards, it'll have before battle or after battle conditions, too, that have to be paid attention to, because they can change it. Like one of them gave me a condition that when I defeated that monster, I got to go to room 2, meaning that the next time my turn came around, I didn't have to go back all the way through the dungeon again and have enough light. I could start in the second room. So,
and that's more on gameplay, but so
okay, I skipped.
no, that's all right. But thematically, it still kind of fits because
Yeah,
you're doing stuff in the dungeon that affects you doing other things in the dungeon. And but yes, you got to pay attention. We'll go into a lot more detail on gameplay. But anything else on the rule book?
nope.
Okay, so I gave it 8. You gave it a 7. So gameplay is where it shines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys have not listened to me before, I don't even think we even reviewed the original Thunderstone on the channel yet. But Thunderstone has been my favorite deck builder ever since it came out. And that's saying a lot because I love Dominion. I love Ascension. I love Star Realms. I love... God, there's so many good deck builders out there.
Epic.
Aeon's End. Fantastic deck builder. But this is still my favorite. So I gave it a 10. And the reason why it's my favorite is that it's fairly easy to play because it's so straightforward. You get a starting deck of cards. And so you have to announce, once you look at your hand and it's your turn, you have to announce, am I going to the village or am I going to go to the dungeon? And so if you want to go to the village, you're looking at cards that give you money. And that money, then you can then go to the marketplace to buy weapons and spells or items. You can then go to the bazaar to buy gear, which could be bread, lanterns, or potions. You could go to the guild's quarter and buy the top face-up version of one of the 4 heroes. You go to the temple to get some extra healing. Or if you got enough gold, you can go to the Shop of Arcane Wonders and buy a treasure card. And so that's it. And now there are some bonuses unique to Quest, or like if you go specifically you still get to do the marketplace, you still get to do the bazaar, but if you go to the guild's quarter, you can actually increase, instead of being able to level up 1 hero, you can level up 2 heroes. Now you don't get to do the bonuses of the other areas. That's a pretty good bonus.
Oh yeah.
Especially if you got a ton of experience and you're able to level up multiple heroes. But if you go to the temple, you normally, when you go to the village, you get to heal 1 wound. But if you go to the temple, you get to heal 2 wounds. But you don't get to level up a hero because they're all visiting the temple. So you can't do that. And so you really have to ask yourself, what do I really need to do? Do I need to go to the village, do all this cool stuff, and what order I do them in? Or do I want to go to the village? And if you go to the village, then you're looking at cards that give you attack. And now you got melee and you got a magic attack. And so you add up your cards, and so you add up your attack. And then, so if you're going to the dungeon, you have to make sure that you have enough attack to attack something. And so no matter what quest you're playing, you always have a rat in the top version called the Wilderness. So you go into Wilderness, you defeat a rat, and it always takes 4. Now what's really cool about going to do the rat and what makes Quest significantly better than the other versions of Thunderstone is it helps ramp up your deck quickly. And so by going to the Wilderness, you defeat the rat, you automatically get to take one of your level 0 starter heroes and level up to any of the level 1 heroes that's in the marketplace, just for defeating that. So they'll call it spoils. So you get to level up a hero as a result of defeating the rat. So you go to the Wilderness multiple times, you're able to get your heroes started in your deck without having to purchase them. So then you can use that money to buy weapons that's going to equip your heroes. Or what Chris did is buy spells to be able to use. And he got a lot of spells. I never generated enough money to be able to get those spells going. But it's pretty darn cool. And so, but again, you can also purchase it. So there's all kinds of card abilities. So for example, the lantern, what's kind of cool about that is you say, all right, I'm going to go to the village, and you buy stuff. Well, it says when you go to the village, you can also go to the dungeon, but you can only go to the Wilderness. So you can, I got enough stuff to buy, and I got enough stuff to kill the rat, so I get to do both. And so it's kind of cool how, again, it ramps up the deck, because old Thunderstone, you're literally spending turns just doing the village. You're not even worried about going to the dungeon because you're just buying heroes and weapons and spells and tweaking the deck and getting rid of stuff that you don't want just to be able to go to the dungeon.
Right.
And so they negated that. I think it's so much better as a result of it. And so, other than that, what you really is, you're just going through the dungeon and you're looking for something called Thunderstone keys. You reveal 4 Thunderstone keys out of 6. The rat flips over, becomes a boss, and then everyone gets an extra turn to try and defeat the boss. You defeat the boss, then you add up all the experience from either cards, experience that you didn't use to level up heroes, add that all up. Whoever has the most wins the game. So why is it a 10? Easy to play. It's elegant in its simplicity for me, and everything in the market is upfront and allows you to strategize for deck building. So I can see everything that I want to do, and I'll go, oh, that would work well with that weapon. And so then I can start figuring out this is what I want to do. And then same thing goes for Chris. And he went a completely different strategy than I did, and he won by 1 point.
1 point.
1 point. So both strategies worked.
Yeah, they did.
It just worked a little bit better because for whatever reason. So it's a 10. My favorite deck builder, and I think it will be for quite some time. Chris, what do you think?
Well, one, Robert introduced me to the original Thunderstone when I first came out to visit him a few years ago, and I fell in love with it instantly. So much I bought the app and played the heck out of the app solo. I'd be sitting at the VA playing the app and enjoying myself.
Talk the app because the app just...
I know. The app vanished.
It vanished, and they never done a good version of the app, in my opinion, and it breaks my heart because I think this would be perfect for an app.
They also added in something different, which was side quests and guild sponsorships. We don't have the cards out. But the neat thing about these side quests is that you flip it over so that your opponent doesn't see what your side quest is, but you know what it is, and you are actively going. So in my case, I had to use so many spells in one turn, and that allowed me to go search for what's called a legendary treasure, which is not in this pile. It's its own thing. Where it's some kind of named artifact. And I ended up getting Bakal's Hand, I think is what it's called.
A cursed artifact.
It was a cursed artifact.
Freaking cool.
Yeah, it would give me wounds. On top of that, it gave me a festering wound. But the more wounds I had, the more powerful the card, my magic was.
It was like 3 damage for every wound?
3 damage for every wound you had. And on top of that, my wizard, I had gotten up to level 3. And my wizard spells were all amped up. And I kept using Magic Missile, which amplifies based on...
Yeah, he was doing tons of damage.
And so, it was really fun to see all those combos. And here I am. I don't play that many board games, but it took me a couple playthroughs to see the interlinking works of the cards together and go, hey, let's put this together. So side quests are really cool. Guild sponsorship is face up. People can see it, but the guild is kind of what one of your... So if you know you're going to grab a lot of clerics, for instance, then you would I grabbed the cleric guild sponsorship, where it gave me an extra bonus, an extra piece of experience every time I defeated the monster if I had a cleric in my hand at the time when I played. Going back
Mine was a fighter with a weapon. It had to be a fighter with a weapon. And I had an extra experience for whatever monster I defeated.
Not game-breaking, but in the end,
extra
1
experience.
point.
Extra experience is extra victory point, and it allows you to level up your heroes. Because one of the things, like we said, is being able to level up your heroes. So when you look at a stack of heroes, they always have level 1 up front. But you go down several character deep, then you got level 2. And you go down even further, then you got level 3. But you got different levels of each hero. So, and they progressively get better. I mean, they can go from equipping a small weapon and doing little damage to maybe equipping a heavy weapon and doing major damage with it.
Right.
And that's just one type of character. His got progressively better with spells and doing more damage. Rogues can be able to do all kinds of cool stuff. Like I've seen a lot of rogues where they destroy things to be able to do other stuff.
Or get extra money every time.
Or get extra money. Just all kinds of and there's a ton of variety. So I do believe I'm caught up with all the expansions. But I've not even come close to playing them all. Because I have 2 big box versions of Thunderstone Quest. One box is still got all the stuff still sealed in it. And there's a ton of material I have in just this box alone. So it's a 10 for me. I can't get over it. It's that good. I love it.
Yeah, it was a 10 for me as well. I mean, I love the original. I like this one even more. I know I'll be breaking it out again.
And it's kind of funny how each version did get better. Because Thunderstone was good. Thunderstone Advance was better.
Yeah.
I mean, they added the wilderness versus the dungeon, and they did some cool stuff there. And they kind of ramped it up a little bit for Thunderstone Advance, but this is the best version so far.
And replayability is huge.
Oh, it's
you got so many reasons
unlimited.
You got so many reasons to come back and replay it.
Yeah, just from the different combination of heroes versus weapons alone.
Right.
It gives you a lot of variety. But The dungeon tiles, there's a huge stack of dungeon tiles. So how those come out could be unique. And then therefore, that's not even the monsters on them. Just the dungeon tiles.
Does it have randomizers?
For dungeon tiles, you just shuffle and you just deal them out.
No, I meant on the cards.
But yes, but there's randomizers for heroes, items, monsters. There's all kinds of stuff.
It's insanely good game.
But you do have to just let me pepper that though. Let me make sure you're careful. If you do a random game, it can be very brutal because you might randomly get weapons that take a lot of strength to increase them. But the heroes that you randomly got might be fairly weak up front. And so they can't equip a heavy weapon. So it may not mesh well. So if you do random, so just be careful when you set it up. But I think that's the gist for me. Any other final comments? Cannot recommend this game enough. Thunderstone Quest. Go out and buy it if you don't have it. And if you do have it, go buy another copy and give it to someone because it's that good. So that's it for me. Thank you. And make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit that like button so that then you can be notified whenever we got new videos come out. So that's it from us. Thank you.